Drowning is the fourth leading cause of accidental death, and drowning accidents could almost always be prevented if people understood and practiced the rules of water safety. It is a good idea for you and members of your family to take a course in water safety and life-saving skills. Even very young children can be taught basic water safety, and the earlier a child learns to swim, the better. This training is available from the Red Cross and other community organizations. Here are some basic water safety rules everyone should keep in mind. The first is not to overestimate your ability. Even good swimmers drown because they think they can swim farther than they actually can. Never dive into water where you are uncertain about the depth or location of underwater objects. Never swim alone. Anyone can get a cramp or run into trouble from unexpected currents. Be sure there is someone around who can pull you to safety if you need it. If you are responsible for the safety of others, never let anything distract you. This is especially important to keep in mind when you are responsible for toddlers or children. Watch them constantly when they are in or near the water. And remember, water toys and floats are not a substitute for life preservers. Everyone should wear a life preserver in any situation where one is required, and people who are weak swimmers should always wear a life preserver around deep water. Many drowning victims are people who never expected to be in the water in the first place. When you see someone in trouble in deep water, do whatever you can to rescue the victim without endangering yourself. Always yell for help. If the victim is conscious, throw him a rope or a float, or if you can get close enough, extend something for him to hold on to, like an oar, towel, shirt, or fishing pole. Swimming out to the victim is a last resort because it is dangerous, even for someone trained in water rescue. There are too many cases of double drownings in which the rescuer becomes the second victim. Row out to the victim in a boat if at all possible, and if you must swim out, take something with you to extend to the victim, like a float, a piece of wood, or even a towel. Sometimes a drowning person is in difficulty because he has been injured. If there's any chance that the victim may have a back or neck injury, try to find a board or other flat object to support his back and head. If the victim is unconscious, send someone to call for medical help. Immediately position his head for an open airway and check for breathing. If artificial respiration is required, remember that the rate is different for adults, children, and infants. 1 breath every 5 seconds for adults, every 4 seconds for children, and every 3 seconds for infants. Sunburn is seldom a matter of life and death, but it is painful. It can be serious, and it can be prevented. Protect yourself from sunburn by covering your skin with clothing or a sunscreen. When you use a sunscreen, be sure to replenish it after you've been in the water. It washes off. Increase your skin's tolerance to the sun gradually, and remember that ultraviolet rays, the part of sunlight that tans and burns, go right through clouds. If you do get a sunburn, there's not much you can do for it except relieve the pain. Cool water or cold compresses are effective. Many commercial after-sun preparations, especially those containing aloe, will cool, soothe, and moisturize a mild sunburn. If the sunburn has blisters, don't break them, and if they break by themselves, cover the broken skin with dry, sterile gauze to protect against infection. Get medical attention for blistering over a large area. You hear about most cases of heat exhaustion and heat stroke when a heat wave hits an area that normally has mild summers. People's bodies just aren't used to doing that much cooling. If you are not accustomed to hot temperatures, there are a couple of things you can do to protect yourself from the effects of heat. First, you're going to be perspiring more, so you need to drink more fluids. Second, you should try to limit physical activity. Physical exertion increases internal body heat. Heat stroke is sometimes called sunstroke, but you don't have to be out in the sun to get it. With heat stroke, the body's sweating mechanism stops working altogether, so the skin is hot, red, and dry. The blood vessels dilate, concentrating the blood supply near the surface of the skin. The pulse is rapid, and the victim is likely to lose consciousness. Body temperature can go as high as 112 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat stroke is a serious emergency. The victim will die without rapid cooling and medical help. Send someone to call for emergency aid if you can, but don't delay getting the victim cool. Move the victim into the shade or a cooler area. Loosen or remove his clothing, and use cold water to bring his temperature down. Pay special attention to cooling the victim's face and neck. If you can, put him in a tub of cold water, or place ice packs or cold packs under his arms and at the sides of his neck. It will probably take a while for the temperature to come down. Half an hour is not unusual. When the victim's temperature feels like it is near normal, stop cooling. Now you need to protect him against chilling and treat for shock. Dry him off, cover him lightly, and elevate his feet. But be prepared for his temperature to go back up, and if it does, start the cooling process again. You can encounter a snake just about anywhere, but be on the lookout for them, especially in wooded areas. Look before you reach for a handhold. Be especially cautious around rock piles or thick brush. A bite from a poisonous snake can be deadly serious. You need to keep the victim still. Any movement will hasten the spread of poison. If possible, send someone to call for emergency help immediately. If the bite is on an arm, leg, hand, or foot, use a strip of cloth to make a constricting band 2 to 4 inches above the wound, but do not put it around a joint. The band should be about 1 inch wide and just tight enough to slow circulation back to the heart. You should be able to slip a finger underneath it without too much difficulty. Expect swelling, sometimes extreme, around the bite. If it is on a hand, remove the victim's watch, rings, or bracelets, and keep checking to make sure swelling does not make the band too tight. Cooling a poisonous snake bite is not recommended. The venom has probably already destroyed tissue, and cooling may make the problem worse. If you are not close to a telephone, you will have to get the victim to a hospital. If you can carry the victim, do not let him walk, even for a short distance. It is extremely important to keep his heart rate as slow as possible. The venom of some insects can also cause serious illness. If the bite or sting of a poisonous insect shows signs of severe swelling and discoloration, or if the victim experiences abdominal cramps or nausea, treat it the same way you would a poisonous snake bite. The difference here is that you can cool the area of the insect bite with an ice pack. Although most insect stings are uncomfortable at their worst, an allergic reaction to one is a true emergency that requires immediate medical intervention. The victim's breathing passages swell closed or nearly closed, and blood pressure drops to a dangerously low level. Your #1 priority is to get the victim medical care as soon as you possibly can. He could be dead in less than 15 minutes. Someone who has a history of allergic reactions to insect stings may have special medication with him. If the victim has a sting emergency kit, follow the instructions in the kit, but still get to an emergency room as quickly as possible. Contact with poison ivy, poison oak, or poison sumac often results in a painful itching rash within 48 hours after exposure. Learn to recognize these plants. If you come in contact with any of them, wash the affected skin area thoroughly with soap and water, and wash any clothing that may have oil from the plant on it. Apply calamine lotion to relieve itching. An ice pack or cold compress will also provide relief. If you can keep the victim from scratching, you can reduce the possibility of infection. Get medical attention if the rash is near an eye or on the genitals, or if it is severe or gets infected. You can do a lot to protect yourself and your family from the problems we've talked about today. Be alert for dangerous situations and take proper precautions. That's an ounce of prevention. But you've also got to be prepared for unexpected trouble. make sure you can provide the cure.